Let's listen to and check out The Well of Souls from The Legend of Spyro, The Eternal Nights. There's 2 parts, Well of Souls and Black Powers. Here we go. There's something so incredibly majestic about an all-male choir that is feeling itself. There's a virility in here automatically. It's actually sort of surprising because the very first half of this felt like a march. I think it is a march, but if you listen back, the French horns in there actually cause it to sound uncomfortable because it's dipping into the dissonance and into flats. And that causes an inherent feeling of like back against the wall. This could be an enemy's music, you know, and it's also very interesting because whenever we have that kind of drum pattern in video games, that's almost always some sort of march and some sort of forward momentum. And I don't think it's any different here. Also note the little accents that are happening in the oboe and the flute, I believe. No, it's the oboe. So that's going on while you have this long stretched out. It's pretty effective. So this is cool because it's actually, if you notice, it's actually ascending. And we go up and we go up and we go up, especially in the tenors. So the bass and the baritones, I think, are staying pretty central in their pitches, but it's the tenors that as we shift in key, the tenors are actually ascending. And what it's doing is bit by bit, we're climbing up a mountain emotionally. And what it does is it causes just a little bit of tension because we slide up into new pitches step by step, so it's not too jarring. But what it does mean is that we're climbing, and that causes a feeling of like having to navigate something really difficult, diving into a real problem or ascending into a new beginning. There's not a clash per se, but there is this feeling that things are not great because it doesn't have this very warm tonal center. What it does have is this feeling of being slightly on edge, which is really effective. Oh, interesting. So now we've got this use of drums here. So I understand you're at the center of the mountain of Malefor, the Well of Souls, inside of which Malefor is trapped. Here you have to fight a large ape creature named Gaul, who was the one that led the raid on the Temple of the Night, looking for Spyro as an egg in the events of the New Beginning. The large ape creature, that's Gaul. That's the sort of musical language we're using to reference Gaul here with these drums. There's a sort of exotic quality to those. That's very interesting. I'm not sure how to connect the plodding marching quality mixed in with the drums. It's a very, okay, hold on. You hear what that horn is doing? So that trombone or that trumpet, what they're doing, that's called a sforzando. So we start piano and then we swell into a forte note structure, and that's very effective at causing tension. Coupled with the drumming, coupled with the marching, is all very indicative of this boss theme. This theme represents a few things. I think it probably represents Malefor, probably represents the mountain, which was that climbing thing. Spyro was probably climbing up the mountain at that point. And then we enter into the center of it, and now we're facing off with Gaul. So it's actually telling the story of everything that's occurring within this little connecting moment of the game, which is really effective. Bells. So this is really cool. So that's the fast version. And then once we shift into this newer phrase, the baritones are still doing that, and then you have the sopranos over top, and then you have the tenors going, exact same rhythmic idea that the baritones are doing, but stretched out. So what it does is you've got the baritones that are setting the sort of rhythmic intensity of the piece. You have the sopranos over top creating this sort of tonal color, and then you have the tenors that are re-emphasizing what the baritones are saying, but in a stretched out way, which causes dissonance and tension, because even though they're actually not dissonant notes, what it does is it causes a feeling of tension because it's all stretched out, while underneath we have the actual like standard rhythm that we would hear. So there's a little bit of this feeling of unrest because we have three different ideas musically happening at the same time, all connecting to each other. Nice. Yeah, that's fun. You know, I was sort of surprised that it's so slow and so plotty. In a way, it's not hard to pay attention to, but it's the type of thing where I'm so used to combat themes being very full of forward momentum, and this is very slow on its haunches, and in a way it's kind of not distracting for it to be so slow, but certainly it does give this feeling of, what are we doing here? Is this the meat and potatoes of this piece? But that's only because we're so used to music in video games for combat being fast. So in that case, it actually bucks from the stereotypical thing that we hear when it comes to music in video games when we're talking about battle themes. So that's pretty interesting that it's slowed down. And again, I'm like stunned by Spyro and you know, this like, I think this trilogy, the Eternal Night in this case, that it has this capacity to do this. So now we're going to switch over to Black Powers, because this is the thing that happens when Spyro goes down and collects the power. So I'm assuming that there's going to be a sort of revelatory, faster thing going on. So actually collecting the black powers is not necessarily a good thing. I think it must do something to Spyro here, because you would think that it was a little bit more enthusiastic collecting these powers to be able to fight Gaul and to be able to fight something that's clearly a struggle for Spyro. It's not slow rhythmically, but there's a bit of a it sort of sits on its haunches, much like the last piece, Well of Souls, and for whatever reason, I'm so fascinated by the Latin too. What's really interesting about the next section that we haven't gotten to yet. Ingemisco tamquam breus culpa rubet vultus meus supplicanti par sedeus. That's very popular in the Verdi Requiem. This is a Dies Irae, and actually, so the Verdi Requiem is one of the most famous pieces of Latin writing. And the Dies Irae is, the judgment of God and just judge of vengeance in this case. But the Ingemisco tamquam reus. So I'm really curious to hear what this sounds like in context. That's so fun. So this actually speaks to a common thing in classical music, where we take the lyrics of something and turn it into music. However, there are so many different iterations of some people using the same words. We see this a lot with art song too, where people will take the same words and create different music around it. And it's so jarring when you are used to one way of it being sung or performed, and then you hear it like this, like Ingemisco tamquam reus. But that's really effective. And honestly, I love hearing it like this, and it does carry the same meaning. I sigh like the guilty one, my face reddens in guilt. Spare the implored one, O God. And it is a begging for forgiveness from God. It's a really powerful piece, and it's just so interesting. Again, but this is from a Spyro game, you know what I mean? And a Spyro game that's been around for a while, and it's still so effective. It's crazy. Jede curam me finis, take care of my end. Spyro in this moment really does feel, unless it's from the perspective of Gaul, but it's just possible, but Spyro really feels like, take care of my end, take care of me in my final moments. Like this black power could kill Spyro. I find that everything I've listened to from this trilogy is actually so incredibly appropriate for the stage, and could easily be, no joke, a full-on operatic mass. This could be a mass, like the St. Matthew Passion or the St. John Passion. This is really powerful. And I don't think that, if you're watching this, you may love this music, and unfortunately it's not very popular. And I don't really know why. I mean, besides maybe its age, right? But there's something deeply, deeply moving about this. And the fact that this is so accurate to what a traditional classical thing is that you would hear in a symphony space when discussing God or singing liturgically. Well, if you're still with me, the point I'd like to make about this whole series and this whole piece is that this is actually super subverting expectation. It's really interesting in the fact that it doesn't use traditional full speed ahead battle themes, and like this discovery of this power, which you would assume would be in quintessential like hero format, would be really, really effective and really, really powerful. But instead, there's actually quite a bit of anguish in there and a bit of sadness, especially when we look at the fact that this is a Dies Irae. Just judge of vengeance, make a gift of remission before the day of reckoning. I sigh like the guilty one, my face reddens in guilt. Spare the imploring one, O God. Humbly, kneeling and bowed, I pray. My heart crushed as ashes, take care of my end, take care of my end. I mean, like, that's incredibly profound lyrics. And I want you to understand that, like, this music exists in a Spyro game. And I'm not expecting this video to have tens of thousands of views. That's a shame, because this music is actually profoundly in line with what I've studied in classical music, and it's important. It's actually really important. I don't think it got the attention it deserved, because this is like, it's crazy. It follows such a classical structure, and it's delicious in that way. You know, like, it's really, it's actually stunning. It's actually stunning. Anyway, there's more Spyro on the channel. Feel free to like, subscribe, join the Discord if you want to hang out. Feel free to check out the Patreon if you want to support me directly. And as always, thanks a ton, and I'll see you later.